On this episode of AV Week, where is the innovation in the audiovisual industry? Holographic speakers and where they fit in AV and enhancing hybrid classrooms. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 575, recorded Friday, August 26th, 2022. Creative collaboration.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week. First and foremost, Charmaine Torella. I cannot roll my R's. She is with QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Also with us from USC, Fight On, Lex Evans. Welcome, ma'am.
Woohoo! Thank you.
And also, actually, the last time I saw Lex, I saw this young man, Kaleo Lee, now with Corbett. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So, a couple different things. First and foremost, we're doing some prep for CEDIA, heading to CEDIA, end of September. But just because I guess I got bored or whatever, I'm also heading to Modern Work Summit. So if you are heading that way or looking into that way, actually I'm hanging out with a coworker of Lex's, Joe Way, during one of the panels. So check that out. I'll have Mitch throw a link to the Modern Work Summit website, so you can. It's a bunch of really great manufacturers, a bunch of really smart people hanging out in Orlando in September. First story comes to us from our friends over at AV Magazine. A young man asked the massive question: will holographic guest speakers be the future of live events? Jake Ward from Groovy Gecko asked the question, and he highlights a number of different technologies and honestly, some of the benefits is you can have a single speaker, a high-profile person. Gary Vee comes to mind. You can have them do several different keynotes from the comfort of their own studio without having to get in a plane. That is certainly one of the benefits. And as we're talking about global, the climate change and carbon emissions, that is another benefit here. So, Charmaine, we'll start with you on this. Is this something that we're going to be seeing more and more, or is this one of those things where it's a technology that's kind of cool and it might be kind of a one-off thing here and there?
Oh, I would argue that it's already been here for a couple of years. I mean, it really has. So it's been here. Is AV here for it is the question, right? Because it's being done. I can tell you the numerous amount of clients that Fortune 500s, they do this already. They don't have the ability to fly their C-levels around the world to meet in person with groups of people around the world. Pharmaceuticals, for example, two of the big ones that made, let's say, vaccinations in the last couple of years, they have to use this, and they do use this type of product already. They use it to, meet a large audience across the world, their supply chain partners, government officials, you name it. So the question is, it's here. It's been here for like a couple of years now. AV, however, the problem that these types of service providers for hologram solutions at events have is they need more vendors that can actually implement and get this set up. That's the problem they're running into, because there's a limitation as to how many people can set this type of event up for these Fortune 500 companies. I'll give you an example. There's a big financial company that buys almost $500,000 a year worth of these events a year. That's to start, and they intend to ramp it up to 1 million, 2 million a year. There's a lot of market share to be had in our world if our world is here for it, the AV integrators in particular, and they actually train people up and get familiar with these type of solutions.
All right, Kaleo, same kind of question. Are you looking at this as an opportunity to bounce around the globe virtually, or is this something that, as Charmaine says, AV integrators have an opportunity here to become experts at this and putting these systems in.
Yeah, it's so I think if you're doing live production, absolutely, this is something that you need to have in your toolkit. It just provides flexibility. I don't know about the whole saving flight, but as far as the flexibility wise, being able to get to Charmaine's point, a C-suiter who's got a crazy schedule is going to be a lot nicer to be able to get them in holographically rather than like they couldn't make it kind of a thing. You know, puts a lot more flexibility on, you know, those keynote speakers and stuff like that. I will say I do like in person still, but you know, having them in a holograph is still going to be a better than, you know, a Zoom screen on a projector kind of a thing.
Yeah. Lex, let's talk about this from a design and some creative aspect. One of the things that these folks are doing and the technology behind them is, quite frankly, green screen, right? It's the ability to key out the background and then send these people, you know, wherever on an interesting or a unique projection screen. What are some of the unique things that we could do with folks in keying out the background and then kind of sending them through the air, I guess, or through the internet, because the background is gone? And I say that as someone who spends every Friday in front of a green screen, and I just trust that Mitchell is putting in the correct background.
And you know what's funny is you can't see it, but I painted the wall behind me green. I did not think about the green screen aspect when I go on Zoom and calls. So don't paint your wall green if you're going to be on a video call all the time. But back to the question. You know what? At the base of every design decision is accessibility. So my question here would be, hopefully this would be able to, the idea behind this is that more people who aren't able to fly or be there are able to access new audiences, and new audiences are able to access people they wouldn't normally be able to access in such a cool way. But my question is, how are we going to make that accessible to anyone? People who can't maybe necessarily afford this type of technology, are we going to have a space or a place where it does become affordable so that people can have, you know, those experiences if they aren't paying a premium price? So Charmaine was describing how like some tech company was doing millions and millions of dollars, right? Okay, are we going to keep it up at like the Apple and, you know, Google? Or like, is this going to be available to everyone? And how are we going to make this accessible to everyone? My immediate thoughts are like, you know how you can rent spaces for like an office? Could we rent out a place where somebody could go there and then they would have all the appropriate equipment to be able to have, you know, that green screen and proper lighting and everything for this to work out really well? Or is it going to be like an at-home production, which might not necessarily show as well? Do you know what I mean? I'm imagining.
Yeah, like Lex, what it sounds like you're saying is make hoteling the solution in a way, right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. I understand. I see where you're going.
That was like my immediate thing of like, okay, how are we going to actually make this happen? Design or not, it needs to be accessible to everyone. So you can have all the money in the world and make it as cool as you want, but if it's not accessible if it's only accessible to a certain amount of people who are willing to pay a premium price, I don't love it as much, because it's like, okay, what's something else wealthy people can get, the rest of us can't?
That's a whole different conversation that is not for this.
But I see what Lex is saying, Tim, the hoteling aspect. I mean, if I were like a WeWork, I'm just throwing it out there. I would say WeWork is all over. They have office space, whatever. If they could build certain of these types of things and people on different sides of the globe go into respective WeWork spaces and less of a premium because it's there, that's a way to make it affordable. So I see exactly where you're going, Lex, and I think that you hit on something. That's cool.
Absolutely.
And you know what else would be really cool is I hear like some universities are building out studios, like a TikTok studio or a YouTube studio, things along those lines. And why couldn't you have a holographic studio where somebody could rent out that same space? Now it makes it affordable for just about anybody to use. I mean, I'm not in charge of the university, just throwing out there as an idea.
Just in case anybody listening is, you know, has a university, you know, that's what they do. They're in-house integrator. somewhere in Iowa. That
And
would
this
be a
is
great
being
idea.
recorded, so make sure that they know that all three of us have a
It is?
trademark.
I will say the only thing I'm not a fan of is you have to wear pants again. Like I was almost,
All right, Kaleo. All right, next story from Commercial Integrator. That is Kaleo Lay from Corbett. Yeah, from Commercial Integrator, Dr. Reggie Smith III, writing about how collaboration and education are not exactly strangers. Dr. Smith writes in here, in 1990s, I remember working for the Black College Satellite Network, which was founded in 1981. It no longer is in existence. However, its legacy lives on in historically black colleges and universities. This is because BCSN was at the forefront of developing and deploying telecommunications infrastructure that aimed to fuel the development and support of HBCU distance education programs. Dr. Smith is not wrong here, guys. We have had distance learning. We have had hybrid learning. I don't care what you call it. And some of those, not just the HBCUs, but rural education facilities or universities and colleges that served those rural communities have been doing distance education for quite a number of, quite frankly, decades. But it's, we've gotten to the point now where not only is the technology more affordable, quite frankly, it's also more portable, and we can do more things with it. Kalei, I'll start with you on this. When you look at, where education is and how we can upgrade and leverage the limited resources that education institutions have, how are they going to be able to best use these hybrid distance learning systems?
I mean, to your point earlier, like most people are doing it, and it's like you mentioned, it's affordable, and there's no reason why you're not doing it now. I mean, we're doing distance meetings right now, distance, podcasts, whatever, right now. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it. Although I will say during the pandemic, I remember we were doing an AV happy hour, and there was a university kind of almost in tears as far as like they weren't prepared for it, which also blew my mind because, coming from Hawaii, I used to be an integrator out there, and we did distance learning in every classroom and all that fun stuff before. And it was surprising to see a prominent university just like, we weren't prepared for this. But as far as, cost and everything, there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this. And it kind of leads into the other conversation as far as the tools and everything. There's, it mentioned in the next article, and I hate to jump the gun, but, there's ways like that e-glass thing to be able to, write and get your message across and interface. And, I mean, I can use my iPad right now if I wanted to and connect that and use that as a interface as well. So I mean, there's no reason why anybody shouldn't be doing it. There's a lot of cool technologies to make it, like we mentioned, with the hybrid side of the house, to integrate distance learning broadcasts, across the entire campus or from afar or whatever it might be. So I mean, there's almost no excuse at this point, but it kind of comes down to the know-how, if anything, and preparation. So.
All right. Lex, you are the one of the four of us who does work for a university. So when you're looking at it and you're looking at some of the classrooms that the folks in the team at USC support, how do you? I mean, you guys did an open house back in July, and it was an incredible experience. You went over, you and your team went over some of the decisions that you made and why you made this decision versus that. But how are education facilities able to kind of upgrade and update the hybrid distance learning?
Yeah, so I think as far as our classroom technology goes, we're kind of on that same, like we created a system that works really well for hybrid teaching. And so we have the same system. So in the classrooms, it's the same. But looking forward this year, so that's our standard. All rooms should be hybrid capable. So that's our standard. But we were thinking about how we could raise the bar, especially as the students are coming back on campus in person. What are some ways that we can provide technology for them in order for them to go kind of above and beyond in that hybrid experience? So that kind of even lends itself outside of the classroom, so that students can express themselves or use these or use technology for their education outside of classrooms. So we are in the middle of creating a we call it the Creative Lab right now, I believe. Yeah, very creative name. But right now we're creating this lab as a collaborative space that kind of allows the students the digital creative freedom to express themselves and explore things like podcasts, NFT, art, gaming, video production, the type of technology that in these days, everyone has the bare minimum, everyone has an iPhone, but not everyone has access to really cool production capabilities. So how are we going to take this above and beyond in order for students to be able to have stuff they wouldn't normally have access to in their houses or their dorm rooms, and be able to give them a space to just, create as much as possible with cool technology. So far, I can't say too much about the Creative Lab because it's still under wraps, but so far it's looking really exciting, and I'm really excited for the accessibility that we're going to give, and it's going to be to students, staff, faculty, anyone on the university campus who wants to use it. So I love that everyone's getting access to it, but I can't help but wonder how that's going to move forward into the classrooms, because at some point people are going to start, that's going to start being the norm, that high level production. So I'm curious, how is that going to translate into the classroom? Because right now it's the bare minimum. We're at the bar, we're on Zoom, we're doing hybrid, but how are we going to make that learning experience even better? One of them, what Cleo or Charmaine mentioned, those e-boards and different things like that. What tools and technology are we going to bring into the classroom to make that experience better? Because honestly, that is the bare minimum. Hybrid is the bare minimum. If you're not there, you need to figure it out, because that's long gone. That needs to be happening. But how are we going to step up the game in the classrooms? So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it did, and I think you're right. I think hybrid being the bare minimum cuts across a whole lot of different places, including corporate. Charmaine, same question here. Is where, when you're talking with colleges, universities, what are they telling you as far as how they're able to update or upgrade the classroom experience for students and for professors?
Well, during the time of COVID, a lot of the universities had to figure it out. So basically, they had to workshop it, and they had to do it fast, because in a big sense, a lot of them rely on that, tuition revenue to keep them going, things of that nature. So they didn't have time to waste. So during that time, a lot of them were operating like mad scientists and creating their own labs. They were trying every different methodology you could think of to get it up and running. And a lot happened to become successful, and they created this hybrid solution. They've been testing it throughout the summers, when things are a little bit out of lull. And then now they're going to ramp up again now that school's in session. And they're going to implement it. So it's not anything concrete, but a lot of them have a good framework from that time during COVID, where they were mad scientists in a laboratory figuring it out, that they're going to build upon depending on the different experiences from 2021 into this school year. So a lot of them aren't that concerned. It's only, I think, when it comes to, I have the largest, public school system. I live in New York City in the country. When it comes to the public school system, that's where the issue lies, because of funding and getting access to that funding, distance learning, and also getting it applied in the right way and getting the right people. That's where the difficulty lies through the K-12 and the public school systems with distance learning. They don't necessarily have the budget. Their municipalities haven't quite figured it out, because they're public, right? They have to go through all the bureaucracy and the politics of it all. And I think this is where it's an opportunity also to get the government side of our education system on board. As we know, government is usually slow to upgrade things, and that's why K-12 has this problem with not really having the right distance learning applications that they need. So that's what I'm hearing, it more from that sector of education, the K-12, the public sector, because of that.
Getting creative, there's ways around cost. Lex brought up, having production studios and things of that nature. If you have several inexpensive web cameras, the innovation these days, I think, is in the software side. So the pandemic really opened up a lot of software like production tools. You're able to, get creative, get a student employee kind of a thing. You're not paying them a ton, right? It gives them real world experience, whatever you pay a student employee. But you're able to get them to do real world experience. You're doing it via software. I know some companies have, even on the mic levels and everything, you can control that stuff. So now you're getting into that production level, audio, video experience where they can do it from the comfort of their own home. So you're still doing distance learning, distance production, all that fun stuff, controlling the different camera angles, and then use that as a tool to work with that teacher. What did they like? What did they not like? And now they're able to cut to what the teacher's writing on the whiteboard. And it doesn't have to be like the e-board kind of a thing. It can be a whiteboard. Maybe they do have a smartboard thing. You can cut to that as a feed in itself. So now you have students being able to do it not on campus, but in the comfort of their own home. You provide them a little laptop and all that fun stuff. And then take it a step further, they have something we're doing on the enterprise side is, digital signage for the desktop. So, that was actually a conversation we had with USC originally for, a digital signage standpoint. But now you can do this production level, say it's a message across campus to everybody, push that to, from a signage side, but on a desktop, to everybody, make a campus-wide announcement kind of a thing. So there's a lot of great ways to do it innovatively. And I think that software kind of closes that gap from having to pump out a ton of, equipment and costs. So.
Mm-hmm. Final story comes from an old friend of AVNation. Scott Tyner writes on Rave, "Where is the innovation in AV?" From Scott's article, definition of innovation according to Oxford Language is of a product, idea, etc., featuring new methods, advanced and original. Take a moment and think about that definition and how it applies to the AV industry. Scott did reference e-glass Kaleo. I reached out to Scott to say, "Hey, dude, I'm doing your article. Is there something you wanna add to this?" He goes, "Quote unquote, first, maybe I'm wrong. Somebody prove me wrong. Am I missing something? But second, my point in the article was not about what we tech people find innovative or easier or more convenient, but rather what technology over the past few years has been innovative in a way that changes the user experience drastically." Lex, we're going to start with you on this one, madam. Where is the innovation in AV?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I might agree with him. I know he wants me to say he's wrong or prove him wrong, but it's just like it is impressive, but then also at the same time, it's not impressive from a student point of view. Going into a classroom and having hybrid, it's like, wow, congrats. From the tech side, it seems really cool, but I think as a student, I don't know, the complaints we've had so far this year, you're welcome, is that students are struggling without subtitles because that was a regular part of a hybrid classroom experience. And now that we're not leaning so hard on the hybrid experience, the accessibility of having the words on the screen it just isn't there. And it was super helpful for, maybe teachers or even students whose English isn't their first language. And they were even able to copy the subtitles and then maybe translate them in order for them to maybe understand it better. So that was something that I've been thinking about recently, of just okay, this seems like it wouldn't be that innovative and cool, but also that should be something that's in classrooms, like a regular, reliable subtitle system that allows it to be accessible for everyone. So those are things I think people think too big sometimes when they want to be innovative. I have a boss who just goes so hard on big ideas that sometimes the details get lost in it. So I think really we need to focus on making sure what we have right now is really, really good. So even though we have the hybrid experience right now, what can take it from good to excellent? And thinking about it from the student's point of view, walk in their shoes, what is expected, what are they experiencing outside the classroom? Because Netflix, any show ever has subtitles now, and that is a regular part of being able to be on your phone and also kind of read what's happening, or have your volume down and be able to be in, taking care of other people in the household and have subtitles and still be able to follow along. So this generation is used to it. So we need to be able to provide for them also things that they use regularly, if that makes sense. But yeah, my big thing right now is subtitles. I'd be interested to see how that is solved in a regular day-to-day classroom experience.
All right. Charmaine, where is the innovation in the AV industry?
2 words: digital inclusivity. Now, that term is a term that a lot of enterprise and corporate clients use, and that's where they're going. Meaning, the trend is to make sure that, as Lex would say a lot, everything is accessible to everyone within their environment. Everyone has access to that collaboration tool. And it comes in different forms. When I say digital inclusivity, it's almost like saying telepresence. Remember that word? What does that mean? Well, that could mean a number of things. The same with digital inclusivity. Digital inclusivity with some clients means, oh, we're going to have wall-less conference rooms. That's one of the ways they're doing it. Meaning, I'm going to throw a meeting space in this corner, so not just executives and managers have access to collaboration tools in my environment. Someone can jump in the corner and do a quick video with another person from the office and have access without booking a room. They're more included. There's more access. Digital inclusivity. Other ways is, and Kaleo's going to go into this, so softball, Kaleo. Software. So a lot of software applications being wrapped around certain services, like the hologram article that we talked about, to make it more inclusive of people like you couldn't get access to on a normal basis because they have to fly in and travel. And frankly, with the travel and the airlines being what it is today, making it difficult, harder, and more expensive, people want these tools to be more digitally inclusive and available all around. So that's where the market is going. There's quite a few ways to get there, but that's where the creation, I think, is going to come from, the innovation in our industry, if we set our mind to how can we help people be more digitally inclusive.
All right. Kaleo, you'll have the last word on this one.
Yeah, thanks for the softball pitch. Absolutely. Software, I think, is where that innovation is happening. I mean, we've seen it with, the Zoom side, right? And I'm glad you brought up telepresence, because that's where the Zoom versus telepresence kind of came into play. And that flexibility you get from software, you're paying a recurring license and all that fun stuff, but you're getting constant updates, right? For the flexibility you get from it, the settings and protocols. I remember telepresence, we used to set these up, for studios and wherever, but it takes a while. You want a new background capability that used to be a firmware update. Now it's just, on my computer. Boom, click, it's updated. I have, the ability to share my PowerPoints or whatever it is. And it goes back to the software. I think that's the biggest piece as far as flexibility and where a lot of that innovation is coming from these days.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us Thank you for listening. Charmaine Torella from QSC. How do people connect with you, ma'am?
You can connect with me by going to my email, which is charmaine.torella@qsc.com. I'm also on LinkedIn if you spell my name out and spell it correctly, and Twitter as well.
Lex Evans, how do people connect with you?
Howdy, it's Lex on Twitter or LinkedIn under Lex Evans.
And is
new last name, so don't get it wrong.
Yeah, Evans, as in like Chris Evans. No, she didn't marry, Chris Evans. But Kaleo Lee, people connect with you or Corbett.
Yeah, for me personally, it's Twitter @CleoEini. And then even a friend of the show, Bradford Ben, you can put me on blast. I prefer a DM, but go ahead. I will respond honestly and truthfully. So
Bradford, that's a favorite pastime of Mr. Ben's. So for me, for Tim Albright, do not follow me on the Twitters, because at this point, yes, as my son says, technically the Bears are undefeated, but it's preseason, kids, so don't get too excited. Go by the website, if you would please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. Also check out our sponsors, those that help us make AVNation possible. If you are a tech manager, IT manager, a user of AV in any way, shape, or form, on the home page you will find a bright blue button at the top. It says Fuse. That is our AV user group on AVNation. Click on that, register, and let us know what you think. This is a brand new platform, kind of a sandbox right now, but you kind of get to make it happen and tell us what you want, need, and desire out of it. So check all that out and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.